Good evening. This is Heartstock Radio, and I'm Carol Murphy. We have a great guest this evening. I want to make sure everybody knows that we're on Facebook, and you can plug in there, ask us questions, have fun. Have fun. Yeah, that's what it's all about. This evening, we have a guest, Liz Rubin. In just a moment, she will be back, and she is the co-founder of Ecodeo. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening.
This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that Rubin of Highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me.
Thanks for tuning in this evening. Liz Rubin is with us. I'm Carol Murphy, and you're listening to Heartstock Radio. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Please tell our listeners all about you in 1 minute or less. No, kidding.
Sure. No pressure. Thanks for having me on your wonderful show. It's a real honor.
Thank you.
And I am the founder and CEO. I consider myself a creative director, really, but I'm a filmmaker. I started a company called Ecodeo that's focused on amplifying climate solutions. We foster environmental and social justice by creating impactful communications, video, and film storytelling. We're a digital media firm that's creating content towards a sustainable future.
That's my kind of business. Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. When did you first realize that this was your calling? Tell us a little bit about that path. We love to hear our guest stories. It's all about you.
Sure. I don't know that there was this pivotal, wake up moment. It sort of happened gradually, I think, more. So there's sort of a little bit of a progression, I think. In my early 20s, I actually probably around 20, I became a filmmaker. I, had studied psychology and art, and I was always an artist. And I got my start working in the film business through working at film festivals in the box office, right out of, at 20, 21 years old. I loved working at film festivals because you got free coffee and free food. And there was, also free booze at night and parties. And it was a lot of glamour and fun. But also you could sneak in and watch a lot of these films from around the world. And I learned a lot about storytelling from those very earliest moments. Anyway, I got my start working in the film business. I fell in love with the camera, and I became a serious camera assistant. I moved to Los Angeles and worked in Hollywood, and I worked in the biz, the film, entertainment, showbiz world for many years on camera crews as an assistant. And I loved those times in the 90s, late 90s. Indie film was really a big deal then. I loved indie film, and I loved the crews. We had a lot of fun. But as I got older, I was working on a lot of kind of shows that weren't helping the world, that some of them were mean-spirited. Some of them were not doing anything helpful. It was a paycheck. It was sort of a bunch of lost years for me, which I didn't really realize till later. But it wasn't, I did love shooting music, however, and I was a camera person. I was a professional camera person. So through shooting music, I got into documentary, and I became a full-time documentary cinematographer. During those years, I remember a moment I went to Honduras to film and in bed with an NGO that was rebuilding the communities in Honduras that had been devastated by Hurricane Mitch in the late 90s. And that had set Honduras back about 50 years of development. So, filming there really changed my life and woke me up as a privileged American filmmaker to wanting to use my work to make a difference. Yeah, so that's an early sort of.
Yeah.
So probably more than you asked for.
No, I actually am going to ask you some more questions about that. We're not going to, dawdle on this for too long, but we spoke a little bit earlier, and I really wanted to hear, and I wanted everyone else to hear about your greatest influences early on in life. I think that's kind of important, something that was embedded deep in you early on, specifically your grandmother.
Sure. I consider myself very lucky. My parents I'm lucky. They are good people who wanted to do well by others and who still do. They taught me to follow my heart and to love and appreciate art. They also gave me the shirt off their back and worked hard. And I think that, my father taught me there's survival involves positivity. And I think my mother taught me, among everything else he taught me, and my mother taught me at a very young age, she brought us to nature a lot. I grew up close with nature, running around in the woods and on hikes with my mother. My mom was a writer, a journalist, and a creative. And I don't think I would have been a filmmaker without her realizing that I thought visually. I was dyslexic and I struggled, and she saw my strengths. My grandmother was a third and huge influence for me. She was born in 1910, lived through 2 world wars, Depression, Vietnam, Civil Rights Movement. She worked all the way through her 80s. She lived to be almost 101. And just that alone is enough inspiration
Remarkable.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was the oldest of her generation, and we were very close. I was the oldest of mine, and we had a special bond. She was the first one to speak English in our family, and she was sort of the bridge between the family and the world around her. That's because she spoke English. So she was always in charge, and she grew to be the matriarch. But she used to say to me that whenever I had little kid problems, whatever those were, she would always say, without hope, there is no life. And she taught me to find positivity in everything and to make do with what you have. It's now that I'm realizing a lot of her lessons more than ever before. She used to go on hikes in her old age to try to stay fit, walks, and she would pick up change for her grandchildren that she found along the way. She was like the giving tree. Small things that she picked up off the street were huge for us. She was a Depression kid. And I also think she taught me activism. I consider myself an activist filmmaker. I'm fighting for our climate with our work. And from her earliest years, probably when she was 10, she helped her mother register women to vote. She was like an early suffragette. And even when she was old, she was making darn sure there was polling stations in the nursing home. And she was really something. She fought for civil rights. She was always an activist.
Yeah, and I would like to really hear a little bit more, too, about those early years in Hollywood, your challenges and successes, pivotal moments. What were those?
I don't know if I want to say too much about those years. I mean, I was very much learning to be a technician with cameras. Mm-hmm. And I worked on trucks. You lived in parking lots, crazy hours. You ate pizza in parking lots. That was your life. You were sort of a carny, show to show, crew to crew. You become a family. I mean, that's what it was like. It wasn't very glamorous. You worked hard, but it was a lot of fun. There were some great years, great shows, and a lot of not great shows. I think what I got out of it was a certain kind of discipline with filmmaking, and indie film in the 90s was exciting. I mean, it was good times. It was an exciting, fun time.
So how did you evolve into Ecodeo? Was that the first enterprise that you started, or was that an evolution to where you are now?
Yeah, it was an evolution. When I kind of left working on a lot of shows that I felt like were not, I want to use the word crap, but a lot of bad shows that just were mean-spirited or not helping the world. I was really in love with documentary. I started to fall in love with documentary, and I got hired on President Obama's re-election campaign as one of the cinematographers. And that's where I really became sure of the work that I wanted to do, and kind of where I got the impetus to start the company. And there was, a bunch of pivotal moments after that where I really kind of felt like I'm doing the right thing.
Mm. What was that
And
like,
sometimes
following Obama around?
Well, it wasn't so much filming him all the time. We, I love the Obamas. I'm nostalgic at this point. It was incredible. It was a life-changing experience. But what really was some of the most incredible stuff was filming everyday citizens, stories of everyday citizens around this very vast, diverse country. Stories of veterans, stories of businesses, stories of farmers, stories of, every kind of social issue. And it sort of took me out of the film world, art bubble that sometimes is Hollywood or the film circles. And that was really great. For me, there was a bunch of moments on that campaign that changed my life. And I was privileged enough to film fields of wind turbines in West Texas. And I filmed a story of an entrepreneur that the administration was helping boost their business, wind turbine business. And I couldn't understand why there was such a disconnect between these incredibly progressive initiatives by the administration and a lack of discussion of them in the mainstream media. And that was one of the reasons I started my company. Yeah, and there was another moment on that campaign where we were encouraged on our team. We had a large digital team, and I was on the video team. We were encouraged to send in pitches for story ideas. And as they had wanted to do a big Earth Day piece, and I kept submitting ideas for Earth Day, thinking that this was a big pillar of the administration and of Obama's campaign. And the pitches that I sent in, there was just no response. And we were a month out from Earth Day, and I finally sort of cornered one of my superiors, and I said, "Did you read my pitch for Earth Day?" And I had run it by other producers, and they all were behind it. And I was told that nobody on this campaign right now cares about the environment, that's not a priority. And that was a moment where there's so many priorities with job creation, and, political campaigns are complicated.
Votes. Yeah, it boils down to votes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it made me so angry that I knew in that moment that I was going to do something about it, because I knew that wasn't true. And so that's I think that was a big.
Yeah, that's heavy. Just hearing it from you say that just now, it really had a profound impact on my heart. We're going to take a little break, and there's more yet to come. Thank you for listening. This is Heartstock.
As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said, "No trespassing," but on the other side, it didn't say nothing.
This is Heartstock Radio. I'm Carol Murphy. Our guest this evening is Liz Rubin. Hi again, Liz.
Hi.
So walk us through what happened after that. It does sound like you had a very pivotal moment in a realization that you were going to do something about the environment and working for Mother Earth. Where did you go from there?
After the Obama campaign, I was a little lost after trying to figure out, was I going to go back to being a full-time camera person? And there was only one thing that I was so passionate about, which was helping to create work that influenced people to maintain or restore a sustainable planet for generations to come. And I just wanted to work on climate content that was about our planet and about ecosystems and also innovations. There's so many wonderful innovations out there that folks just don't know about. And film and video content is one of the best ways to reach people. I started the company, sort of like all companies start, sort of scrappy. And we eventually got a few clients, and we worked with a lot of nonprofits in the early years. And we still are, but that was mostly what we were doing. And one moment I had where I knew that I was on the right track. It was hard. I was doing a lot of side work as well to pay the bills, and financially it was hard, But I had one of those moments where I sort of realized that I knew I was in the right place. And it's sort of this one moment that sticks out, which is in about 2014, I found myself behind a camera at the People's Climate March in New York City. And Ben Ki-moon and Al Gore and all sorts of world leaders were marching down the streets of New York with a million celebrities. And there was a very large group of international indigenous peoples and leaders that had come from the most northern to the most southern lands. And it was really exciting march. I filmed 35 interviews on the street that day, some for an organization I was working with and some for other reasons. And there was this one moment where I was shooting an interview and I literally couldn't breathe because of what was going on in this interview. And that was one of those moments in my life where I knew that this was, where I should be, or it was one of those moments in my life. I saw this man on the street and he was wearing a white cloak and he had a rope around his neck with this large horn, almost like a ram horn. And he had white hair, all the way straight white hair. He looked like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, standing there in the middle of New York City. And he was a beautiful indigenous man from the Arctic, from Greenland, the most northern fjords of Greenland. And we knew we wanted to interview him the second we saw him, but we didn't know where he was from. And during the interview, of which he was very eager to get on camera, he had these incredible blue eyes, these like Icelandic blue, icy eyes that just were so beautiful. And I was looking through the eyepiece of the camera and looking at him, and he was looking right down the barrel of the lens. And I felt this incredible connection and intensity. And he said on camera, I came here to New York City to warn the people that the water is coming. And this is a man that had grown up running around as a boy on the fjords. And he explained to us that the glaciers aren't there anymore, that they're gone and that water is coming. And it was just one of those moments where I knew that this was, no matter what, I was going to do this work for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So in other words, brace yourself for some huge social changes that are going to be inevitable as a result of what we're here in Montana. We do see our glaciers. They're going away, but unless you live at the foot of one, you don't really see it on a day-to-day basis. And he knew.
Yeah,
right?
he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I'll never forget it. Yeah.
So where did you go from there? And what words of advice do you have for those like you who have a story to tell. And how did you make it all happen?
Well, I think the organizations that we work with make it happen, and we just help them. That's how I see it. I mean, I've always been a collaborative artist, or in business, I guess I'm a collaborator. At least that's the way it feels. You need each other. Everybody has different, policy needs media needs policy. And so, I think, we partner with organizations to help them tell the stories and the messaging that needs to get out about how to take action, or what is going on in this ecosystem, or what incursions are happening on this indigenous land, and where the root of that problem is, and what to do about it, what we can do about it. These kinds of partnerships are, that's the work. And then breaking that down into, making that accessible in a film and video format is I don't know, that's what we do. To me, I also freelanced during the earlier part of the company to pay bills, and I still do sometimes, but I worked on a neutral reporting team for the United Nations, and I was behind a camera, and it was a very sort of formal format, the content that we produced, because it was a neutral reporting agency that I worked for. So we weren't making films about what was going on there. But I happened to be at one of the climate meetings during the famous Paris climate talks. And, the alliances and the collaboration that happened there is one of the things that just keeps me going still today. I mean, it will always keep me going, because when people work together and collaborate, you can get a lot done. I don't think filmmakers are supposed to work in a vacuum.
Yeah. How do you find folks to work with? I imagine they just come knocking on your door. There's probably a big line. And how do you decide who you work with and who you don't? That's got to be tough.
There's not a big line.
Come on, work with me here, Liz.
They're very kind of you. Very kind of you. We do have a bunch of ongoing projects, but it's up and down like any business, and especially in media. Anybody out there who, media is tough. It's up and down, and without getting into it, when Trump got elected, we heard a lot. It was tough. Everybody was, couldn't spend on any content. So it's up and down, but a lot of it is relationship building and working with messaging as it develops. I mean, companies, nonprofits, NGOs, folks are always working on messaging, and it's a process. To me, it's really about relationship building, and a lot of my relationships go on for years until we actually collaborate on something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you have a huge team. Where did you collect all of those folks from? They look amazing.
Well, we have really, I'm blessed to know so many talented people, and we have a large roster. Many who's not on our website, but everybody's contractor and freelance. I mean, at this point, we're not. So folks because I've lived equally on both the West and the East Coast. My other partner, who's based in LA, we have folks in both coasts, and certain people are right for certain jobs. Certain people are not available when you need them. And so it's sometimes good to know a couple camera people, for example.
Yeah. So I was really hoping you could share with us some of the projects, the pearls that you're most proud of.
Sure. We did we worked on a project for Rainforest Action Network about the palm oil industry, which has destroyed a great deal of Indonesia's tropical rainforests. And we created an animation that we, were quite constricted on in many ways, because there was a lot of legal representation of the workers that worked in these palm plantations. But, I do believe that this animation helped raise a lot of awareness among a lot of the largest producers of palm oil, including PepsiCo. And Rainforest Action Network, which is a 30-year-old incredible environmental organization that most people listening to the show know about and probably support. They have been fighting for a long time to stop the labor abuses within the palm oil industry, as well as the forest deforestation that has incurred from this industry, this monoculture. And that was a really wonderful piece to work on. And I'm proud of that one. And we worked for a body that was started in 1940.
We've got about a minute left. And I want to make sure we've got enough time for you to tell everyone how they might reach you. And I did watch that Rainforest Alliance, the video?
Rainforest Action Network.
Yes, the Rainforest Alliance is a different organization. But I did watch that on your website, and it's very, very good. So how might people...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and it's near and dear to my heart because the company that I'm working on, we do a lot of work in Indonesia. And, we should have you back and just talk about that for half an hour. We could probably for an hour. But at any rate, how might people reach you and get in touch?
Yeah, you can reach me if you'd like to reach out or collaborate or just say hi. I'm at Liz, L-I-Z, at Ecodeo, ECODEO.co, or my phone number, anytime, 213-840-2786.
Liz, you're awesome. I know that's an overused word, but let me tell you, love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on Heartstock Radio.
Thank you, and you are awesome, and I love the show. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. This is Heartstock. I'm Carol Murphy. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Heartstock Radio is a production of KBMF 102.5 Butte America Radio. Hear our live programs every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time via livestream at butteamericaradio.org.